Welcome to Module 1, Introduction to Psychopathy. In this first module, we're going to delve into what psychopathy really means, explore its diagnostic criteria, and examine the behaviors and types of aggression associated with it. Whether you're a professional in psychology, criminal justice, or simply fascinated by human behavior, this module will provide foundational insights into one of the most discussed personality disorders. We'll begin with the basics. Psychopathy is a complex personality disorder characterized mainly by a lack of empathy, superficial charm, and a high degree of manipulative behavior. Historically, the term has evolved considerably. It first appeared in the 19th century, described as a form of moral insanity, and has since transformed through the works of Hervey Cleckley and Robert Hare, among others, who helped shape our modern understanding. Moving on to the diagnostic criteria, it's crucial to note that psychopathy itself isn't officially recognized in the major diagnostic manuals like the DSM-5 or ICD-11. Instead, it falls under the broader category of antisocial personality disorder in each of these guides. The DSM-5 outlines specific criteria such as deceitfulness, impulsivity, and a disregard for the safety of self or others, while the ICD-11 focuses on broader trait domains that affect personality functioning, such as disinhibition and dissocial behavior. Next, we'll discuss common behaviors of individuals with psychopathic traits. These include emotional and interpersonal traits, such as egocentricity, superficial charm, and a profound lack of guilt or remorse. Their emotional experience is often shallow, and they may have difficulties in forming genuine emotional attachments with others. This doesn't mean they're incapable of forming relationships. Rather, these relationships are often self-serving and manipulative. Lastly, we'll explore the forms of aggression associated with psychopathy, which can be categorized as either reactive or predatory. Predatory aggression is planned, controlled, and used as a means to an end. It lacks emotional depth and is often directed at obtaining something the individual wants. Reactive aggression, on the other hand, is erratic, spontaneous, and typically driven by emotional arousal and less controlled, often resulting in rapid, reactive bursts of anger or violence. By the end of this module, you'll have a clearer understanding of the key aspects of psychopathy, helping you recognize and differentiate these traits and behaviors in both clinical and everyday settings. Stay tuned as we unpack these complex interactions and explore real-world applications in our upcoming lessons. Thank you for joining me in this introductory module, and I look forward to guiding you through the fascinating world of psychopathy. So, to define psychopathy, this disorder is characterized by persistent antisocial behavior, impaired empathy and remorse, and bold, disinhibited, and egotistical traits. From a historical perspective, the concept has evolved over the centuries from early views of moral insanity to modern clinical frameworks. Now, the Hare Psychopathy Checklist was developed by Robert Hare in the 1970s, and this is the most widely used tool for diagnosing psychopathy. Hervey Cleckley's criteria from his book, The Mask of Sanity, written in 1941, described 16 core traits of psychopathy, emphasizing emotional and interpersonal characteristics. Now, the dichotomy in psychopathy, the condition can manifest in both violent criminals and successful nonviolent individuals in high-functioning roles. Psychopathy versus sociopathy. Psychopathy is often considered to result from genetic predisposition, while sociopathy is more strongly linked with environmental factors. When we talk about the neurological underpinnings, Studies suggest psychopathy may involve brain abnormalities in areas responsible for emotion regulation and impulse control. There are also emotional deficits. Psychopaths typically show a lack of empathy, guilt, and deep emotional connections. When we talk about interpersonal traits, these are superficial charm, grandiosity, and manipulation. These are the hallmark traits. As far as behavioral characteristics, some are impulsivity, a need for excitement, as well as a disregard for the safety of self or others. Antisocial outcome. Psychopathy is strongly associated with criminal behavior, but not all psychopaths engage in criminal activity. This is important. Many are in the corporate world. Prevalence estimates. Approximately 1% of the general population and up to 25% in some criminal populations are the estimates. If you read Martha Stout's book, The Sociopath Next Door, she claims that 4% of the population could qualify for a diagnosis of antisocial personality disorder. I expect that's probably a closer estimate. Early theories originated with Pinel's concept of manie sans derrière in the 19th century, describing individuals displaying irrational behavior without delusions or hallucinations. As far as the influence on the legal system, psychopathy assessments influence decisions on sentencing, parole, and treatment directions in forensic settings. As far as treatment and management, psychopathy is generally considered challenging, with limited success in modifying core traits, but some potential in managing behaviors. And that's not without controversy and criticism. The label psychopath carries stigma and can impact the treatment and rights of those diagnosed. And there are gender differences. Male psychopaths are more prevalent in studies, but female psychopaths often exhibit less overt aggression and are much more manipulative. Cultural variations. The expression and recognition of psychopathic traits can vary widely across different societies. And there are evolutionary theories as well. Some theories propose that psychopathic traits may have evolutionary advantages, such as enhanced ability to exploit social and reproductive opportunities. As far as future research directions, these focus on better understanding genetic, neurological, and environmental interactions in the development of psychopathy and improving diagnostic tools and treatment models. As far as the DSM-5, it lacks a specific diagnosis for psychopathy. Instead includes antisocial personality disorder, ASPD, which covers some of the overlapping traits. The ICD-11 also does not explicitly diagnose psychopathy. It introduces a new structure for personality disorders based on severity and specific trait domains. As far as the DSM, criterion A, a pervasive pattern of disrespect for and violation of the rights of others occurring since the age 15 years. Criterion B, the individual must be at least 18 years old. Criterion C, evidence of conduct disorder with onset before the age of 15. Criterion D in the DSM-5, antisocial behavior does not occur exclusively during the course of schizophrenia or bipolar disorder. As far as the ICD-11 and severity levels, this defines personality disorders in 3 levels of severity: mild, moderate, and severe, which could inform the assessment of psychopathic traits. Now, the ICD-11 trait domains. Specific maladaptive trait domains include negative affectivity, detachment, dissociality, which is the same as antisocial or antisociality, disinhibition, and anancastia. And what anancastia is, it's obsessive or compulsive. The ICD lists a disinhibition domain, and this reflects traits related to impulsivity and risk-taking, aligning with aspects of psychopathy. As far as the dissociality domain, this encompasses characteristics like lack of empathy, callousness, and antagonistic behaviors common in psychopathy. And then we have the negative affectivity domain, not typically a prominent feature of psychopathy, contrary to other personality disorders. And then you have detachment, and this includes traits such as emotional coldness and aloofness, which are often seen in psychopathic individuals. As far as function impairment goes, both the DSM-5 and the ICD-11 require significant impairments in self and interpersonal functioning to diagnose a personality disorder. Pattern of behavior. Both classifications require a persistent and pervasive pattern of behavior that deviates markedly from cultural expectations or cultural norms. Developmental considerations. Both the DSM-5 and ICD-11 emphasize the stability of personality traits from adolescence through adulthood, crucial for diagnosing personality disorders. And both have exclusion criteria as well. And both systems have criteria designed to exclude other mental disorders that might better explain the antisocial behavior. Legal and forensic use. The DSM-5 and ICD-11 criteria are often utilized in forensic settings to assess personality disorders that may affect legal outcomes. Global assessment function. Both systems require consideration of the broader psychological, social, and occupational functioning. As far as cultural factors go, both the DSM-5 and the ICD-11 stress the importance of considering cultural contexts when evaluating personality traits and disorders. And these criteria have evolved. The evolution from the DSM-4 to DSM-5 and the upcoming ICD-11 reflects a shift toward a more dimensional approach to personality disorders, providing a more nuanced understanding of psychopathy-like traits. Superficial charm. Smooth, engaging, and charming behavior that can be highly persuasive and captivating. Then we have grandiosity, which is an inflated sense of self-worth and capabilities, often believes they are superior to others. And we have pathological lying, frequent and habitual lying, use of deceit for personal gain or pleasure. Then we have manipulativeness, skilled in influencing or controlling others for personal gain or advantage. There is a remarkable lack of remorse or guilt, absence of feelings of guilt or remorse for actions that harm others. They can do anything at all with emotional impunity. Shallow affect. They have a limited range or depth of emotional response. Emotional expressions are often insincere. Callousness. There's a lack of empathy for others, coupled with a disregard for the feelings, rights, or suffering of others. There's a failure to accept responsibility, consistently blames others for their own mistakes or failings. And there is a constant need for stimulation. There's a huge proneness to boredom and a constant demand for stimulation to keep entertained. A parasitic lifestyle. Psychopathic people tend to be financially or emotionally exploitative of others in a parasitic manner. Poor behavioral controls. Impulsive and often aggressive behaviors that are poorly controlled and reckless. Sexual promiscuity. Psychopathic people engage in numerous casual and often unsafe sexual relationships. Early behavioral problems. There is always evidence of behavioral problems and conduct issues from an early age. Lack of realistic long-term goals. Psychopathic people show inability or unwillingness to formulate and execute realistic and long-term plans. They're extremely impulsive. Psychopathic people have this tendency to act or make decisions quickly without thoughtful consideration or consequences. Irresponsibility. A general disregard for social norms and obligations, such as financial commitments or interpersonal responsibilities. They have this huge denial of reality. Psychopathic people often deny what seems obvious to others. They may use denial to manipulate or control situations. They always have relationship issues. They have difficulty in maintaining long-term relationships due to issues of trust, loyalty, and respect. They're very versatile criminals. They engage in diverse types of criminal activities, showing versatility and adaptability in their antisocial behavior. There's also glib speech. They exhibit a superficial and facile quality in speech or writing, often disarming and charming to the uninitiated. Predatory aggression, also known as instrumental aggression. It's planned, purposeful, and emotionless, aimed at achieving a specific goal. Reactive aggression, also known as affective or impulsive aggression. It is reactive, spontaneous, and driven by emotion, often as a response to a perceived threat or frustration. Emotional context. Predatory aggression lacks emotional context. Reactive aggression is characterized by high emotional arousal. Pre-attack behavior. In predatory aggression, pre-attack behavior is calm and controlled. In reactive aggression, it's often agitated and erratic. Predatory aggression is goal-directed, that is, to obtain money, status, sex, whatever, whereas reactive aggression is not typically goal-oriented. As far as physiological response, there's lower physiological arousal in predatory aggression, very high arousal in reactive aggression, including increased heart rate and adrenaline. With cognitive processing, predatory aggression involves a more complex cognitive process, planning and foresight, whereas reactive aggression involves less planning and foresight. As far as the expression of anger, predatory aggression does not necessarily involve anger. Reactive aggression often involves intense anger or rage. As far as duration and suddenness, predatory attacks are usually prolonged and calculated, whereas reactive attacks are sudden and brief. Triggering events. Predatory aggression can be triggered by opportunities for gain. Reactive aggression is often triggered by immediate social or environmental stimuli. When we look at social context, predatory aggression often occurs in a context where the aggressor has some social or physical advantage. Reactive aggression can occur in any social context. When we look at legal implications, predatory aggression may involve premeditated crimes, leading to more severe legal consequences. Reactive aggression might be considered less premeditated as far as in legal settings. Typical scenarios: predatory aggression is common in crimes like stalking or planned robbery, or serial killing for that matter. Reactive aggression is more common in domestic violence or bar fights. Now, as far as aggression and its relationship to psychopathy, predatory aggression is much more closely associated with psychopathy. Reactive aggression is more commonly linked to other disorders like borderline personality disorder. Management strategies. Managing predatory aggression involves addressing underlying motivations and moral reasoning. Managing reactive aggression involves controlling emotional responses and improving coping strategies. Now, psychopaths are good at risk assessment. Predatory aggression requires assessing long-term patterns of behavior and planning, whereas reactive aggression assessment focuses on immediate triggers and emotional states. As far as therapeutic approaches go, cognitive behavioral strategies are effective for reactive aggression. More nuanced approaches that address empathy and moral reasoning are needed for predatory aggression. As far as prevalence goes, predatory aggression is much less common but more likely to result in serious harm. Reactive aggression is more common and often less severe. Now, with public perception, predatory aggression is often sensationalized in media as cold and calculated, whereas reactive aggression is often portrayed as a loss of control. Now, as far as outcome measures go, success in reducing predatory aggression is measured by changes in planning and moral reasoning. Success in reducing reactive aggression is measured by changes in emotional regulation and response to stress. Now, the very best explanation of the two forms of aggression came from Dr. George K. Simon's book, In Sheep's Clothing, where Dr. Simon, his explanation offers one of the clearest delineations of these behaviors, making it an exceptional tool for understanding how aggression functions in both animals and humans. And this is a book that is in the list at the end of this course, and I do highly recommend it. I've read it a few times. But to understand aggression much better, think of two cats. The first cat is sitting on a porch, minding its own business, when a dog walks around the corner and approaches the cat. The cat arches his back, its hair standing on end, claws out, with a hissing demeanor. This epitomizes reactive aggression. This form of aggression is essentially defensive and occurs in response to a perceived threat. It's a spontaneous reaction to a provocation and is characterized by a surge of intense, often volatile emotions. The hissing cat does not plan to be aggressive in advance. Rather, it reacts instinctively to immediate stimuli that threaten its safety or well-being. Its aggression is a direct and immediate response to the fear or threat it experiences at the moment. This is a survival mechanism deeply embedded in an animal's or a person's fight or flight system. It's intended to protect and preserve in the face of danger. So reactive aggression can be good because it preserves life. Conversely, though, the second cat spots a mouse scurrying across the room, and so the cat moves slowly, calmly, low to the ground, its furs laying flat on its back. Its eyes are intensely focused on the mouse as it stalks it. Now, this example clearly illustrates predatory aggression, because unlike reactive aggression, predatory aggression is not about defense, but rather about a deliberate and calculated attack. There's no display of emotional arousal as seen with the hissing cat. Instead, this aggression is characterized by a calm, controlled, and purposeful approach. The stalking cat plans its movements meticulously and strikes with precision. This type of aggression is goal-oriented, aimed at capturing or defeating a target rather than merely responding to an immediate threat. So Dr. Simon discusses these dynamics to highlight how similarly complex patterns of aggression can be observed in human behavior. Just like the cats, humans too exhibit reactive aggression in response to direct threats, often as a reflexive protective measure. On the other hand, predatory aggression in humans involves more calculated, goal-driven behaviors, where the aggressor is often cool and composed, driven by a specific objective rather than just an impulsive reaction to an immediate threat. So understanding these distinctions is crucial in the realms of psychology and behavioral science, as it aids in assessing and addressing various interpersonal conflicts and harmful behaviors. Identifying whether an act of aggression stems from a defensive posture or a predatory intent can significantly influence how issues are managed and resolved, both clinically and legally. So, to wrap up this first module, the allegory of the two cats not only simplifies the complex nature of aggression, but also provides a clear, memorable, and relatable understanding of the various forms aggression can take. This depiction remains one of the best explanations of aggression, shedding light on its psychological underpinnings and emphasizing the importance of context in understanding any aggressive encounter.